CNJ's Ep.12. CNJ's
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. It is D-Hole with...
Jug. Just singular. Just one jug.
Well, it's good to be back, man. I feel like we're doing pretty good. We get like 2 episodes in a month. That's not too bad, I feel like. So,
Yeah.
Good to be back at it, and I'm excited for this chapter.
Me too. And when we're done, we get to start subbook number 3.
Which I think has like 8 chapters in it.
Oh, wow.
And this first one's like 40 pages, I think. So I checked that out.
I would imagine that we're going to start seeing what the Edu are up to, or will embark upon. Also, I had this weird thought yesterday when I was rereading the book. What if Udinaas was one of the people that Tahol fucked over?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, a subtle connection there. I don't have any definitive clues or anything to back that up. It was a random thought because I know that Tahol has bankrupt many people. And if you're bankrupt, you could either kill yourself or end up as a slave, right?
2 pretty good options, huh?
I don't know about that.
Sarcasm, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough world, so.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Just had to get that out.
Good, you're all good, man. Well, we'll read off our chain of patrons here. We've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Face in the Rock. Haven't heard from you lately, Damien, so I hope life is good. Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Gestriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, Steve Bottle Kegs, The Mortal Sam, John I'd Kill the Mule, Talk the Middle Child, Peter, and Turin. I feel like some of the patrons, you guys have been pretty quiet lately, so kind of gave Damien a little shout out there, but hope the rest of you guys and ladies are doing good. If you get a chance, pop something in the chat and just say hi and let us know you're doing all right.
Yeah.
And if you would like to join that list, open invitation. Check out our Patreon. We have a good time.
And exclusive behind-the-scenes stuff. These videos here.
Yes, otherwise you just get the audio 99% of the time.
Right. But it's so much more to get the facial expressions and the gestures.
Especially in, I will probably have some facial gestures as I read today here at certain parts, so.
Exactly. It can be performative sometimes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely like in my mind, I was rereading this chapter last night and I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, like, how do I want this voice to sound? I don't really know if it's just going to happen however it happens, but like, this chapter was so good and I'm like, I'm not going to be able just to like read it like monotone. Like I'm going to have to put some emotion into it. So,
okay.
My wife is out in the kitchen. She's meal prepping and stuff, and she's leaving in like half an hour for a hair appointment. So I don't know if we'll get to any of those parts, but she'll probably be like, "What the fuck are you doing in there?"
That's not usually a question most people ask when they're in the bathroom, right?
Yeah, to be fair, yes. If nobody knew, for the time being, I've been recording in the bathroom because basement's still under construction, slowly getting closer to completion. Hopefully soon I'll be back into my room in the basement for recording.
Have you done the floors yet?
We primed the walls, and then we're like, wow, we did a shitty job sanding. So we have been doing touch-ups, and we're going to prime again one of my maintenance guys at work, he's got a texture gun, so we're gonna throw some texture on the wall and then paint,
Okay.
and then floor.
Well, if you still need help with the floor, just let me know.
Will do.
It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having that back. So
Yeah.
getting my books out of totes.
Yeah. All right. Well, chapter 11 epigraph here. Faded sails ride the horizon, so far and far away to dwindle. The dire script writ on that proven canvas. I know the worlds belong to be, they belong to me. These tracks left by the beast of my presence, then, before and now, later, and all that moment between, those distant sails driven hard on senseless winds, that even now circle my stone-hearted self, the grit of tears I never shed, biting my eyes. Faded sails hovering as if lifted above the world's curved line, and I am lost and lost to answer if they approach or flee. Approach or flee unbidden times, in that belly swollen, with unheard screams so far and so far and away. The blind longing, Isbarath of the shore.
I have no idea what any of that it's really trying to say, and I thought fairly hard on it. I don't know if you had any ideas.
No, I feel like I don't spend a lot of time on epigraphs. Sometimes I get it slightly. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what this is referring to.
Yeah, sometimes they jump out. This is not one of them that's jumping out
No.
at me anyways.
So I try not to give them too much thought because I would imagine whenever I do a reread, they'll make sense slightly more, maybe.
Maybe. All right, well, we ready to get going here?
Yeah.
Drawn to the shoreline as if among the host of unwritten truths in a mortal soul could be found a recognition of what it meant to stand on land's edge, staring out into the depthless unknown that was the sea. The uncertainty of the sand and stones beneath one's foot, the possibility of erosion of all that was once solid. In the world, one could put together all the manifested symbols to reflect the human spirit, and in the following dialogue, the meaning could be found, leaving one with the choice of choosing recognition or choosing denial. Udinaas sat on a log with his feet dangling in the water. He wasn't blind, and there was no hope for denial. He saw the sea for what it was, the dissolved memories of the past, tides one could not hope to hold back. Every year, a Letheri slave in the water with their nets was drugged by the undertow and swept out to sea. Sometimes the bodies came back, lifeless and bloated. Sometimes it was a body from another shipwreck. From living to death, the vast wilderness of water beyond the shore delivered the same message over and over again. He sat exhausted, watching the waves break. In the sky, he heard the gulls cry, the uncertain sand washing away beneath his feet. Endings and beginnings, the edge of the knowable world. She had run from the house of the dead, the young woman who he had tossed his heart at her feet, hoping that she might glance at it, or, ere it take him, she'd pick it up and devour it like a grinning beast. Anything except run away. He had gone unconscious in the house of the dead. He wondered if there was any meaning in that. He had then been carried back to the Sengar household and placed in a cot. Later he woke up, unsure of how long it had been, and he was alone. No food, no signs of anyone or anything left behind. The fire basically dead in the hearth, and outside, beyond a faint whisper of the wind and a few raindrops, it was silent. His head was foggy, and he moved slow. He rebuilt the fire, found a rain cape, and made his way to the shoreline, not seeing anyone, to stare at the empty-filled sea and empty-filled sky. He thought about the dead warrior, who was alive, the Letheri priestess who ran in the face of a call for help, to give solace and comfort to a fellow Letheri. Udinaas figured the warlock king was in the citadel with the other Edur, while a storm raged around Rulad Sengar, who had risen in the house of the dead, armored in gold, clothed in wax, and probably unable to walk under all the weight, until the coins were removed, the art of Udinaas undone. He thought there would be pain in that, but it had to be done, and soon, before the flesh and skin grew to embrace the coins. Rulad was not a corpse, nor was he undead. An undead would not scream. He lived once again. his nerves awake and mind on fire, trapped in a prison of gold. Udinaas thought, as he was, as every Letheri is trapped. Rulad was poetry in motion, but his words are for the Letheri, not just the Edur. But Rulad was going to go insane. There was no doubt about that for Udinaas. Dying only to return to a body that was no longer his, a body that belonged to the forest and the leaves and the earth. What kind of journey was that? Who had opened that path and why? Udinaas thought it was the sword. It had to be. It would not release from his hands because it wasn't finished with Rulad. Death means nothing to it. A gift that seemed to be meant for Hanan Masag, but offered by whom? But Masag would not have that sword as it claimed Rulad, and now the sword and its power hangs over Masag's head. This could topple the Confederacy, Masag and his Krishnan, unless Rulad submitted to the warlock king. This would have been less an issue if it were Fear or Troll, or maybe even Benatas in place of Rulad. Rulad, who was unblooded, eager for war. It might be that he was broken, but Udinaas thought otherwise. He was able to bring him back, to quiet the screams, a respite from the madness. It then occurred to Udinaas that he may have made a mistake. It may have been more merciful to not impede his descent into madness, and now he would be Rulad's slave. Foam swirled at Udinaas's ankles. The tide was coming in. I don't know why that felt like a lot longer section as I was typing it out compared to when I was reading it.
Yeah. Well, it ends at the bottom of the page, so maybe that's why.
It. But I feel like I got quite a bit out of this opening section. Just starting at the top, I took that pretty much word for word, and not so much horror this time around, I don't think, but it I don't know about you, but it does make me think of the abyss, right? Like the vast emptiness of the sea or space. And then just, like what's happened in the world here recently makes me think of those astronauts that went around the moon, a couple weeks back. That's, they were really staring out into the depthless unknown at that point. I couldn't imagine that. You got 4 of you in this little capsule, and for however long, they're on the backside of the moon. You had no communication with anybody else in the entire world, and I just think that's pretty wild. So sorry for my little tangent there.
No, I think that's incredibly insightful. I guess I kind of saw it as, those moments of solitude that you have, right? Usually they bring like a sense of clarity, or you have thoughts on how to proceed forward or overcome an obstacle, right? But in here, Udinaas is not getting any of that. Like the sky is empty, the sea is empty, it's devoid of any life, right? Like I'm assuming that means animals as well. He's not seeing anything that is of the living. And I think it's a personification of the fact that like he's utterly alone, but he's getting no answers.
Not yet, anyways. And I guess we'll see if he does here going forward or not.
But then again, he's exhausted, right? Like he's been up for how long, right? Maybe having a minor unconscious moment, which you're probably not even resting. Like your body's not even resting. So, little sleep.
Yeah. This next line here, the dissolved memories of the past. And while I think it's kind of a sad line, it's also true. I mean, the sea, it'll grind down anything with enough time, right? Like it's, rocks, ships, whatever. There's nothing that's going to withstand it indefinitely. It's ultimately the sea will win.
Right.
You'll be reduced to nothing, just a memory of the past. And then just immediately after that, I didn't summarize a whole lot of this here, but tides one could not hope to hold back. But this part, like I said, while I skipped some of the sentences and that type of thing, it really was well written and beautifully written.
Yeah, I feel like the first half of that page is just describing his environment, and it was extremely well written. I would agree.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I feel like it accentuates Udinaas as a character feeling alone. You, the reader, don't get to get in touch with him for about a half a page. So you kind of immediately are let in to the disparity of the situation, you know?
Yeah.
Like you don't feel very warm after reading that first half page.
No, not a whole lot. No. House of the Dead. I read that, and it probably didn't come to me till I was summarizing. But like, do you remember playing that game in the arcade?
Yeah, yeah. The two-player shooter with the gigantic
Yeah,
guns. Yeah.
yeah. You think Steve played that? He was a fan.
Yes, I do think it is more coincidental. I mean, while I don't think that Steven Erickson would I don't know. I guess yeah, I know he plays like board games and stuff, but does he dabble in video games? Like maybe that's a question we can ask him.
It's just kind of a fun thought that popped into my head more than anything. But
Yeah.
and then we get this, Udinaas mentioning, and I think that was good insight from you. The solitude that he's facing. There's no food, no signs of anyone or anything left behind. The fire's basically dead. Beyond a faint whisper of the wind and a few raindrops, it was silent. And man, he just does such a good job painting a picture for us. I mean, it sounds with words, like it just kind of blows my mind.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like you can envision like where Udinaas is, right?
Yeah.
I also think that, again, I know I say this a lot, but, this is really just Troll telling a story, right? He's got his own book in the Book of the Fallen. And I think it's interesting that the majority of these chapters, it's like raining or drizzling or cloudy, Seattle type vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just enhances that story, right? Like he says that it's a sad story. Being that it's so gloomy all the damn time, you really don't ever get a moment to pause and be warm. Like it's just never stops being gloomy. And
Yeah.
so I think it does really well to subconsciously set the scene every chapter.
I haven't really thought about that, but now that you mention it, I think it checks out.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Udinus, and he makes his way down to the shoreline, and he thinks, or to stare at the empty filled sea and empty filled sky. It just felt like empty and filled do not feel like two words that should be next to each other, especially when you put that before the word sea and sky too. I mean, the sky is infinite, I guess, if you want to take it out to space and stuff, and the sea is enormous as well. So like empty and filled, like to me, it just seemed there's a weird combination of words in a description. It seems to work. If I was trying to write something, those just aren't the words that I would have thought to make work.
It's really interesting. I never really caught that empty filled because I mean they're elemental, right? Different elements, but they're essentially filled.
Yeah. So it was just very weird to me.
Yeah, wow. Dude, damn. I think
I
I might
didn't
be on
jot
the
this.
verge of an existential crisis right now.
Well, I didn't mean to send you spiraling or anything, so make sure to have Danny check on you here and make sure you're all right if you fall off the screen on me or something.
Sounds good.
I didn't jot this one down, but I thought it was interesting. I feel like Udinus was doing the work of sheathing roulade or whatever that process was called, right? Like, he was doing the work, and he didn't. I don't remember like what his emotions were doing it, but now he's thinking about that work being undone, and he said that he thinks that there would be pain in that, but it had to be done. And I wasn't sure if he means like physical pain for roulade, or maybe if he's going to feel some like emotional pain that his work was undone, the time that he put into it. Maybe it's some of both.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's definitely some of both. I'm sure that it would be extremely painful for Roulade because I mean those metal coins were essentially seared into your skin, right? Like, but also, if I remember correctly, Udinaas was very indifferent to the dressing of Roulade's corpse. Like it was just more of like another task that he had to get done. And so I'm sure he probably feels like it's a huge waste of time, right? Like I exhausted myself for nothing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I get.
Cool. Gotcha. Well, I think it fits too. I just wasn't sure. Like he did. I agree. I mean, he did seem kind of indifferent, but that's where I wasn't sure. Like, well, why would he be kind of like hurt about it? But maybe there was a little deeper connection than I thought, or something.
I must admit that Udinaas really confused me in this chapter because you see a lot of like polarizing like facial expressions with him. Like at one point in the noble and the delegation with later in the book, like he's seen smiling at a particular situation. And it's like, what exactly are you about? Like I don't know. Like he's just kind of got me a little perplexed. Just a tad.
Hmm. I don't know. At least right off the top of my head, I'm not sure I'm remembering that part. But
I think it is in one of my sections, and I do think, I don't think I made a comment about it, but I do think that I summarized those expressions.
okay. Well, maybe it'll come back to me when you read it then.
Yeah, for sure.
That was all. I see you have a comment, but that was all of mine.
Yeah, I think this just goes back to what I was saying about Udinaas at the beginning. I don't know if we were recording or not, but I had this weird thought that Udinaas was fucked over by Tahol. And this line right here, where he was talking about Rulad being trapped in a prison of gold, physically, of course. He, at one point, as he was, as every Letheri is trapped, right, by some of the things that we are seeing with Tahol and Bug's sections, that rich is rich and poor is poor type thing. And you can't help but think, I mean, he's currently a slave, indebted, right? So is it possible that he was one of Tahol's victims? Random thought
I would.
again. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it would be cool if that turned out to be right.
Yeah, that would be a very, very big stab in the dark because this is the first thing that would ever kind of allude me to that. But I'm okay if I'm wrong. I'm not gonna be sad about it.
Sure.
I'm not gonna go sit on the shore of a lake and wonder how the sky is empty and filled at the same time.
You go to Lake Minnetonka.
Yeah.
For not quite the same thing.
Get run over by a boat,
Yeah.
get some money out of that settlement.
There you go.
If you're ready, I'm ready. I think that was a very meaningful discussion on the opening section of this chapter.
Yeah, I'm ready for you. Go ahead.
All right, section 2. Baruch the Pale said to Seren that they might have been visiting a village abandoned to the ghosts. He pushed a log into the fire with his foot. Seren stared at him for a moment and then shrugged. She grabbed the kettle over the fire and poured herself some hot tea. Baruch asked how much longer this was going to take. Seren said to be patient and that there wouldn't be any satisfaction to whatever the resolution of the matter would be. We saw him ourselves. Brulad had risen, but risen too late. Baruch suggested that Hanan Masag could chop off Rulad's head and just be done with it. Seren didn't respond, but inside her mind she thought that Baruch was right. Eater traditions could only go so far with something like this, as something like this probably has never occurred before. They had watched as the two Sengar brothers had dragged their sibling out through the doorway from the house of the dead. Rulad's body is covered in gold coins and clothed in wax. The Eater had gathered on the bridge. Everywhere from within the Eater village, they came out to witness the horror. She had watched most of the Edur file into the citadel, while the slaves themselves seemed to not be found anywhere. Seren suspected that Featherwitch was casting tiles, probably somewhere less obvious than the barn. Time was crawling by. Baruch's camp and the Narek huddled in their tents had become an island surrounded by the unknown. She wondered where Hull had gone. She thought about the land and how healing belonged to it. After the destruction and dissolution of each passing cycle, breeds ended, the last of a particular beast or a race. They walked alone before their eyes could close. Seren longed to hold on to that vision. She desperately sought the calm that perspective offered. Thinking this way allowed Seren to stall the panic. She hears Baruch ask about the delegation from Trait. Seren said that they were still on their way and likely zigzagging their ships with the wind. Baruch said that they should have gotten here before all this took place. The Inquisitor wondered if Rulad would pose a threat to this treaty. The merchant's gaze was on the fire, but he said that it was the sword that had raised Rulad, or whoever made it and gave it to the Edur. He asked if she had seen the sword and how molted it had been. The sword reminded him of the dappled daughter the Edur worshipped. Seren said the daughter's name was Sakul Ankadu. Baruch said that maybe she existed in truth, an Edur goddess. The Inquisitor said that the Edur viewed Sakul as a fickle creature, so therefore the sword as a gift from her was questionable. She is feared, but the Edur worship Father Shadow and his daughter, Sheltatha Lore. More so, Sheltatha than her father. Seren refilled her cup and took a sip. When she was done, she said that it was possible that the sword was given by Sakul, but she doesn't recall any Edur stories where they have manifested themselves so directly. It seemed more like ancestor worship. Baruch told her that the drink would burn a hole in her gut, and Seren responded that it was too late. He then asked her if the sword wasn't from Sakul, then who had given it to the Edur. Seren said that she didn't know. Baruch said that it sounded as if she didn't care and was apathetic. Seren said that it wasn't apathy, but rather wisdom. She was surprised that he didn't know the difference between the two. He asked if it was wisdom that was taking the life from her eyes, the sharpness from her thoughts. Is it wisdom that makes her indifferent to what they had witnessed? She said yes. What else could it be? Baruch said one word, and that was despair. She asked him what she had that was worthy of despair. The merchant said that she was the only one who could answer that. Before she could give her reply, he said that he would answer the question anyway. He pulled out a flask and took a couple pulls. He tells the Inquisitor that she strikes him as the sensitive type, which is likely a quality for someone in her profession. He goes on to say that she's unable to separate business from anything else, as sensitivity is a common vulnerability. Made it easier to get under her thick skin. Makes the scars she carries easier to open with the smallest prod. He took another drink of the potent liquor. He continues by naming Hull and his headlong rush into a fate of his own choosing, and it will either kill him or destroy him. Baruch figures that Seren wants to do something about it, but can't. He adds that he suspects that she doesn't know how, and see it as a failure on her part. Instead of blaming Hull for his antics, she blames herself. She stared inside the cup at her drink. Sometime during Baruch's rant, she tracked the edge of the rim with her eyes and then stopped on her hands. They reminded her that hands were great tools. They could do many things, but they could not speak, could not eat, could not weep, and for that they killed easily. While from the mouth, sounds formed. Language was war, far deadlier than swords themselves. She realized that she was tired of it all. Peace reigned in silence, inside and out, in isolation and exhaustion. Baruch was heard asking why she said nothing.
Nice job, man.
Thank you. Man, this section was deep. I don't really think that I appreciated it on first reread, but definitely summarizing you such a cool picture of what's happening here.
I think I got more out of it listening to you read it than I did reading it the 3 times I did myself.
Oh, really? Why? Just because of the way that I accentuate some things, or
maybe it's just, I don't know if it's just because it's a different form. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously we're not an audiobook, but it sometimes kind of feels that way. So I don't know.
I guess I never really thought about it, right? I mean, we're consuming this content in a multitude of ways, right? Not only are we listening to it, like when you listen to the edited and while I'm editing, but we're summarizing it in written form. And then we're also vocalizing that summary while on top of reading. So it's a good call out. I don't know if I ever realized that before.
Yeah, I don't know if it's another chance for it to soak in, I guess, and maybe it's just like that different form.
But I also like to, when I'm summarizing, I'd like to modernize things a little bit, kind of like scale down some things, because, you know, Erickson is a great writer. I could never write the way that he does, but like I do like to interpret the language so that it makes sense to me, and hopefully that passes on to our listeners, right?
Yeah.
again, it's raining. It's drizzling, right? They're huddled underneath the tent. They're staying warm. They're just kind of waiting for something to happen, right? And usually when you're left to wait, sometimes people at various points get impatient. And again, the Baruch's camp and the Narek huddled under that tent, like I love the line, had become an island surrounded by the unknown. And the sense of like aloneness you get when you read it just felt really eerie, and I just really enjoyed that line a lot.
Yeah, it was a good line for sure.
Well, and then there's this thought that Seren has about, healing belonging to the land after it was destroyed and broken apart of each cycle, right? Breeds ended of a particular beast or race, they walked alone before their eyes would close. And I get the feeling that Seren is thinking about life here. And by focusing on the fact that she's living, breathing here and now, brings her calmness and wisdom. By focusing on the present and instead of the future, which could get one in a tizzy, right? Like if you're always thinking about the past or the future, like you may not be representing yourself the best now. Like Baruch and his impatience, I love how these thoughts from Serene extend themselves to their interaction here at the beginning of the section.
You don't think it's, if I'm kind of connecting the dots on, what you summarized, where it says like thinking this way allowed Saren to stall the panic. I can't help but think of, where a couple sentences before that, breeds ended the last of a particular beast or race. It seems like a weird way to calm yourself down, thinking about like, oh, if I was the last human on Earth and I'm just wandering around until I die, it doesn't seem very calming to me.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where stalling the panic is just like instead of focusing on Baruch, well, not on Baruch, but like Baruch is getting impatient, right? Like he's ready for whatever is about to happen, right? Like he's uncomfortable in the now, right? Where Serena's like, hey, there's really nothing that I can do about it, whatever.
Right. So I think that's acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thoughts about, as you were saying, wandering alone being the last, like, there's nothing you can do about it. You just kind of got to accept it, right? But
Right.
the likelihood of that happening is far worse than her current situation, right? So that's why I could maybe see it being a sense of calmness, right?
Sure.
I just thought it was interesting. Like I really thought that this section really delved into Serena's character a little bit, which I like Seren. I have no issues with her. But Baruch, was kind of bringing up the thought that the sword reminded him of the dappled daughter the Edur worshipped. And the fickle sister, the daughter of deceit, and it plays into the omen that Troll was too distracted to see during the opening chapter of this book. Interesting tie-in. And what it means, I have no clue. But it seems like a connection indeed. Do you remember in the first chapter when he witnessed the seal harvest and then he runs for 3 days back to the Edur village?
Yep.
In there was like a small part that said he was too distracted to see the omen by not paying homage to the fickle sister.
I don't remember that specific part, but I will take your word on it.
Yeah. As he weaved through the forest-rimmed hummus of the trail, Trollsangar's thoughts were distant, making him heedless of the forest surrounding him, uncharacteristically distracted from all the signs and details it offered. He had not even paused to make propitiation to Sheltatha Lore, daughter Dusk, the most cherished of the 3 daughters of Father Shadow, although he would make up for that at tomorrow's sunset. And earlier he had moved unmindful through the patches of lingering light that blotted the trail, risking the attention of fickle Sakul Ankadu, the daughter of deceit, also known as Dapple. So it's interesting to me that Baruch is bringing up the sword reminds him of the fickle sister. And I think I bring up something a little bit later that I think is really cool that kind of maybe ties into this a little bit. And a section with Osric. I don't know if you remember that, where he catches his daughters carrying Father Shadow's daughter like unconsciously.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it.
So I just thought it was kind of cool that, something that Troll missed in the first chapter is kind of being brought up again. It just made me think. And then at the very end of this section, Baruch is talking about Seren's love for Hull and how he assumes that because she's so sensitive, that she's going to blame everything that Hull does on his own as her fault, blaming herself type things. She's staring inside of her cup and she's just like, again, going from the rim of the cup, looking at her hands, and then from her hands, they're like, oh, these things are powerful tools to kill, even though they cannot eat, blah, blah, blah. But the mouth can eat, but the mouth can also make sounds. The language was war, right? Like, just kind of, it's like this weird progression. I kind of get the feeling that Baruch maybe struck a chord with the Acquitator here, taking on the guilt as the thought of Hull hurting himself with his stupid choice. And again, we see this distraction of her mind to focus on the here and now by looking at her hands, relying on what she knows, that there's blood and bone and tendon inside of it, brings her to calmness, which then brings her to another thought about hands as tools and how easy it is to kill with them. And add in the words of war, those kind of make for a pretty dangerous alliance, right? I don't know. I really like the scene, and I kind of wonder how she's doing mentally.
Something that kind of popped into my head as you were reading this, I'm wondering if Saren is going to take a bullet, in a sense, for Hull. Like, if Hull's about to die and she's going to jump in front and take it, instead of him or something. Because we know Hull, like, seems like, I don't know if I want to say like reckless, but he seems kind of indifferent to him dying, right?
Oh, man. So later, when Udinaas goes to collect the delegation, he sees and I don't know if he tells Seren this, but I think his inner monologue says that, oh, that's Seren Paddock. The ghosts really like her. So you might be right. Maybe that's some foreshadowing to her taking a bullet.
Or, whatever she does.
Yeah,
yeah. I could see her, taking his place, pushing him out of the way, whatever, and then Hull's like pissed, but he has to live with it,
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that I made a comment about that. I'm like, I have no idea what that means, but that's the best that I have heard. I had never considered that, if you feel guilty or you feel like blaming yourself for someone else's actions, then yeah, that maybe it might cause you to jump in, right?
Well, and then now I'm kind of thinking more about this. What chapter was it where she put her hands on that black rock and like was thinking about being on the inside with those shadow wraiths or whatever they were, and once in a while you come and just look out at nothing forever, and yeah, I don't know.
That was the first chapter.
Maybe we're on to something.
It was either the first or second chapter.
Pretty early on.
But outside of that, I've got nothing left. I just thought it was so cool how you could literally just have a section with a conversation between two people, and you get so much out of it.
I had one thought here. It's Baruch suggesting that Hannon should just chop off Rulad's head and be done with it. Like you'd probably piss off a lot of people, but probably would have saved yourself a lot of grief if that's what you did, right?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, if the sword's going to bring back to life, is it going to be like the idle hands where the dude duct tapes his head to his body? Like, are they going to use some like blackwood bark to secure his head to his shoulders? I would imagine he's coming back to life, right? Like,
maybe not if you cut the head off. I don't know. But,
yeah.
I mean, maybe he still would have. It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. Good additions there, sir.
Yeah. Well, this is where it's going to get fun. I love this next section. My last two sections, I've loved these.
Yeah,
So,
I know that you had a good time.
I had a very good time. All right. Anything else you want to add, or are we ready to go?
I think I'm ready to go.
Okay. He sat alone and did not speak. A bear fur covered his shoulders, and the sword point was down in between his gold-clad feet. Somehow he had managed to open his eyes. His breath was raspy, the only other sound in the chamber besides Tomad and Masag's exchange. Tomad could not say any more on behalf of his son. Some subtle force had stolen his authority, and Troll realized it had come from the sword. In the center, Masag stood, looking back and forth at Tomad and Rulad. The sword needed to be surrendered to him. Masag had sent them to retrieve it, and the mission could not be called completed until that happened, until Rulad placed it in Masag's hand. Until that time, Fear, Benatus, Trull, Thratus, and Middick Boone all stood in dishonor. It was up to Rulad to heal this wound, yet he did nothing. Trull did not know if his brother could even speak, since breathing sounded hard enough as it was. He was surprised Rulad was able to hold on to the sword. He had bulked up, not the supple young lad he was before. The air in the hall was humid, and the smell of fear barely held back the panic as smoke swirled from the torches and the hearth. The rasping breath caught. Then a thin, broken voice spoke. "The sword is mine!" There was a hint of fear in Hanan Masag as he told Rulad this must not be the case. Rulad replied, "Mine! He gave it to me. He said I was the one, not you, because you are weak." Masag recoiled as if he had been hit. Trull instantly wondered who he had meant as he looked to his brother Fear. When their eyes met, Fear shook his head. Tomad looked to Rulad and asked who had given him the sword. With something like a smile, Rulad said the one who rules them now, the one Hanan Masag had made a pact with. No, not one of their lost ancestors, a new ally. Masag said this was not Rulad's information to talk about. The pact was, Rulad cut him off and finished the sentence, "Something you intended to betray." Rulad continued and said, "That was not the Edur way, was it? You, who would lead us, could not be trusted. The time has come for a change." Rulad got to his feet, his bare fur cloak swept back, revealing the coins on his body, and the gold mask that was his face twisted as he spoke. "The sword is mine, Hanan Masag. I am equal to it. You are not. Speak, then, if you would reveal to all here the secret of this weapon. Reveal the most ancient of lies. Speak, Warlock King." Hanan Masag said he would not speak. Rulad then told him to kneel. Tomad called out to him, and Rulad silenced him. Again, he directed his attention to Masag and told him to kneel and pledge his brotherhood to him, that he would not cast him aside as he had need of him. They all had need of him, and his Krishnan. Masag questioned this need of the Krishnan. Rulad swung about and eyed his brothers one by one and told them all to pledge to him. He is the future of the Edur. He called to Thratus and Middick Boone to pledge as well. He wanted them all to bind themselves to him. Power awaited them all that they could not imagine. He is Rulad, youngest son of Tomad Sengar, blooded in battle, and he has known death. He turned, sword tip dragging on the ground, and he muttered the word death to himself. He kept speaking. Faith is an illusion. The world is not as it seems. We're fools, all of us. Such stupidity. Again, he told Masag to kneel. It is not so much to surrender, is it? We shall know power. We shall be as we once were, as we are meant to be. Kneel, Warlock King, and receive my blessing. Rulad lifted his head and called to Benatus. He said he knew he was in pain from the wound he had taken. Come forward, and he would release him from that pain. He would heal the damage. Benatus replied that Rulad knew nothing of sorcery. "Come Come here! The shriek echoed in the chambers. Benatas flinched and limped closer. Rulad's golden hand reached out and touched Benatas in the chest, causing him to recoil. Benatas straightened himself, and the pain was gone, though tremors shook him. Rulad whispered, "Come, my brothers, it is time." Troll spoke, saying what no one else had said. "We saw you dead." Rulad only said now he had returned. Troll continued on, asking if it was from the power of the sword he held. Why would this ally give the Edur such a thing? What does this ally hope to gain? The tribes had been united. They had peace. Rulad cut him off, saying he had been the weakest of them and that his words betray them. They are Taist Edur. Had he forgotten what that means? Rulad thought so. They had all forgotten. 6 pathetic tribes and 6 pathetic kings. Anan Masag knew a greater ambition, sufficient to conquer. He was necessary, but he could not achieve what must come now. Troll could hear his brother and his words, but he knew something else was threaded through his voice, something strange and poisonous. Was this the voice of power? Rulad kept speaking, saying the Edur had lost sight of their destiny. The Warlock King would twist them away from what must be. My brothers and sisters, all of you here are that to me, and more. I shall be your voice, your will. The Edur have journeyed beyond kings and warlock kings. What awaits them is what they once possessed, yet lost long ago. And what was he talking about? He would give them an empire. Troll looked at his brother and thought, if an empire, then an emperor. He told Masag to kneel. Fear spoke up, asking his brother if he would be the emperor. Rulad quickly turned to face his brother, spreading his arms in a depreciating manner, and asked if he wanted to turn away in horror, in revulsion. Didn't the slave do a good job? Was he not a thing of beauty? Fear offered no answer, and Rulad continued with a smile and said he felt unburdened. He finds himself pleased. Did that shock him? Could they not see his wealth, his armor? Was he not the bold vision of an Edur warrior? Fear answered this, saying he was not sure. Was what he was seeing really Rulad in that body? Rulad told Fear to die, and then to claw his way back and see if he was not changed by the journey. Fear asked if he found himself among their ancestors. Rulad answered with a brutal laugh, using the sword for a twisted salute. He said their ancestors were proud ghosts, in ranks of 10,000 deep, roaring their welcome. He was blooded kin, worthy to join them in their defense of memory against ignorance, and that it was a time of much glory. Fear said then, by this tone, he would deny their beliefs. Rulad asked who could say otherwise. Fear said the shadow wraiths. Rulad said they are Taist Andi, slaves to their will, and those who served them died by their hands. Rulad was asked, where, then, were their ancestors? Rulad's voice was raspy. Where? Where? Nowhere, brother. They are nowhere. Our souls flee our bodies, flee this world, for we do not belong here. We have never belonged here. Fear asked if he would then lead them home. Rulad said he was wise, and he knew he would find the path first. Fear wanted to know why they must kneel. With his head tilted, Rulad said he would have them pledge themselves to their new destiny, a destiny which he would lead the Taist Edur. Fear said he would then take them home. Rulad said he would. Fear stepped forward, took a knee, bowed his head, and asked their emperor to lead them home. In Troll's mind, he heard a sound like a spine breaking. He turned, just like the others, to watch the Warlock King descend the dais, to watch him kneel before Rulad, like the emperor of the Taist Edur. The sound like a spine breaking. That was one of the coolest sections, I think, in this book. I loved this. Loved it. You know, I'm prepared for Rulad to become a piece of shit. But right now...
Oh, no.
I love his, I don't know, dude, his ambition. I dig it. He's just the youngest son, right? The youngest son of Tomad Sengar. Youngest son usually gets overlooked, right? he's really got to do something to like prove himself to stand out, and he got killed in this battle, and now he's back and he's just kicking ass and taking names. So I like the attitude and just like the fearlessness that he's just things are going to go my way for now.
Right. Because he's got the ally, right? Like he knows no one's gonna fuck with him. He's confident,
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's
cocky,
yeah,
arrogant, right?
yeah, and maybe just because that's not like how much like I'm not so much like that, and so it's kind of fun reading a character that way. And like I said, I'm ready for him to become a piece of shit, and I know it's like probably I'm in the minority that I like him at this point, but I can only really see two things that will make me not like him. And number one is if he does some what's his face Bidethal type shit, or if he starts drowning like puppies and kittens in front of like little kids. Like that's what it's gonna have to take at this point for me to like think he's a piece of shit. Um,
Interesting. Okay. I just keep going back to what we learned about the crippled god in the House of Chains. Or even in Memories of Ice, I forget which one. And that he likes to pick people who are flawed.
well, I mean, he's flawed. I mean, I guess it's more personality flaw. I guess I mean you could look at his body now. He's died and he's gone through this ritual process, and
Yeah.
I guess you could say that's flawed too. But I don't know. I don't really feel like we've had a character like him in any of the books so far. I feel like we've had good characters and bad characters. He feels the most like to me at this point of where we are in this journey, like the most morally gray. I can see him going either way here, and I'm gonna guess
Sure.
he's gonna go down the path of the Sith here pretty soon, become a Dark
Yeah.
Lord.
I would imagine. You know what's really crazy about this book is like this whole time I really do get the sense of like this is how it started. You know what I
What do you
mean?
mean?
Like this is supposed to kind of happen a little bit before Gardens of the Moon, more or less alongside of it. And, everything that we've read before this really feels like it would be after. Like the things that we're probably about to read are probably things that will set in motion things we've already read.
Hmm.
Like I wonder how much of what we were reading has anything to do with the Solanda, has anything to do with the Leosians chasing Felicin to, her camp in Raraku. I just wonder about how many of these things have caused stuff we've already read.
Yeah, that'll be
I mean,
interesting to see. Yeah.
the faces in the rock, they clearly allied with the Edur, as we were told in House of Chains.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess read and find out, right?
All right. It's so cool to just think about that premise that like gets me so excited.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see for sure. Hopefully we get to connect some dots.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What you got for us, dude?
Well, kind of hit the first point here already. Next thing, just this line where Rulad is described with something like a smile. I really liked that. I just thought that was a cool way. Like I just imagined this like a smirk, right? Like he's just got something up his sleeve.
Like he's untouchable. He cannot be touched.
Yeah.
Like he knows. He knows. He's got all the information. He's got everything that he needs to know.
Just like with how much I like him right now, I cannot wait to see, just this path of madness he's going to be going down. I want to, just see what that's all about. That is probably one of the things I'm most excited about right now.
Do you have any thoughts on Udinaas? Because there was a part earlier in your section, the end of the first section, where he was like, if only I would have like quelled the madness instead of, or if I wouldn't have interrupted the madness, where would we be? I'm really curious as to the link there. Like, what was Udinaas? How did he help?
I do not know. I don't have a lot of
Yeah,
thoughts on him right now, I guess.
I think that's what leads me to believe. I feel that he's an enigma in this chapter.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he's playing both sides. Maybe not playing,
Yeah.
but he's like, on both sides.
Right. Sorry. Go on.
You're good. This, Rulad's speech here, he was blooded in battle. He has known death. And like, I loved his speech. Like, he's got me on board. I would fight for him right now. And I just keep wondering what he's going to do to fuck that all up. And if I will hate him or if I'll be like, yeah, it wasn't a good thing, but like, I still think he's pretty cool. So I'm very curious about this journey with Rulad.
So you're attracted to charismatic people.
I mean, he's just so interesting, I think.
All right, that's fine. I think this is great. I think we got, tale of two worlds here. Like, to me, he's just a fucking dick. Like, I can't stand Rulad. I mean, I think I can admire the thought of being seen as less than nothing, right? Having no trophies to your belt, so to speak, and then all of a sudden you're, slingshotted to the front. And I don't know. I would just like some more humility from a leader, some humbleness. But that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all makes sense, but just in a story that I'm reading, I want, like you said, somebody charismatic like this. So it just makes it interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious if am I the only one that feels this way? Like if you dig Rulad, like, or at least if you did at this point of the story, like your first time through, like I want to hear about it. Let me know. Like leave us a comment or something, shoot us an email, whatever. But I'm very curious, like if I'm on an island on this, or maybe there's a few of us there. I don't know.
Sure.
So then Rulad, he keeps speaking, faith is an illusion. The world isn't, it seems. We're all fools and all this and that. And you've seen the movie Gladiator?
Yeah.
The only, like, I kept imagining Rulad as Joaquin Phoenix's character in that movie, which is an emperor and a very much not loved emperor. So I think that's interesting. Like, that's how I see him right now.
Okay. I see it. I could see that. I like that movie.
It's been a long time since I watched it. And then, so I don't know if this is my last thought or not, but so Rulad cuts off Troll. Troll's, asking about the sword and that type of thing. Who would give the Edur the sword? What are they trying to get at out of this? And Rulad cuts him off, saying he'd been the weakest of them. And I did not remember if you've had this thought before, but do you think it is Rulad who does this shortening process to Troll in House of Chains in the prologue there?
The more I read on, the more I feel that this is the case.
Or I could see maybe, it's one of the other brothers doing this as like directed by Rulad or something. Maybe it's Fear doing it, but ultimately Rulad is kind of the head of it.
Yeah, I think that from here on out, Troll is definitely going to be questioning Rulad at every step. And I think that is what will ultimately lead him to his position. Like, I almost kind of feel like the epilogue of this book might be the steps right before the prologue of House of Chains.
Oh, that would be interesting, but that would be cool.
Yeah. Like, they're leading him to the wall. Like, and it could even just be a single page.
Yeah.
Like, because we know what happens next.
Right.
Like, you don't need to handhold anything at that point. Because we know, I mean, that's the end of Troll's story, is the beginning of House of Chains.
Well, we got about half the book to get there, so.
Yeah. Definitely excited to read on tonight.
Me too. So we get Fear talking to Rulad here, and Fear asks him if he, when he died, if he found themselves among their ancestors, and Rulad, has this brutal laugh, which I think was awesome. And then I'm just envisioning him, doing this, swinging his sword around for a salute. And then he says that their ancestors were proud ghosts, 10,000 deep, roaring their welcome. He was blooded kin, worthy to join them in defense of memory against ignorance, and that it was a time of much glory. And all I could think is just this seems like sarcasm to me. I don't know how you felt about it.
Well, I think I definitely felt that way too. And I think Fear picks up on that as well, based on the next line.
That he would deny their beliefs.
Yeah, Fear said by his tone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that definitely is a giveaway of what you 100% picked up. It's great.
Cool. And then just the end here, Masag, he does finally come down off his dais and he kneels before Rulad. And I really didn't think, I thought for sure Rulad was going to kill Hanan Masag just with how many times he had to ask him to kneel. I really thought he was gonna get impatient and just cut his head off or something. I did not think he was going to survive that encounter.
I didn't either. I was really surprised when Hanan Masag acquiesced.
I thought for sure he was going to be done, but nope. That's all I've got here. This is probably my favorite section of the chapter. Yeah, I don't have anything else unless you got anything else you want to talk about.
No, I think we covered the majority of it.
Sweet. All right. We're cruising along pretty good here.
Yeah, this next one's a little shorty, but still important. The water tugging at his shins, Udinaas struggled to stand. The waves rocked him, making him teeter. He saw out on the bay 4 ships pushing through the mist. The delegation had arrived. He felt as if he was standing on pegs of ice, the jagged points piercing through his legs. He didn't feel like he could walk. He felt as if he would fall into the foaming water. So easy would it be to be pulled out to sea, water filling his lungs, until it was over and the blackness consumed him. Claws stabbed into his shoulders. Through the rain cloak, he was too stunned to scream as he was swept away through the air. He was flung onto a bed of stones 15 paces up from the water's edge. Whatever had dragged him back was gone. After moments of floundering, he managed to get himself onto his back, and he stared at the clouds in the sky. He thought to himself that the Loquai Wyval didn't want him dead. He checked his raincoat for holes and was overjoyed when he didn't find any, as that would have been hard to explain. With feeling back in his legs, he was able to get himself onto his hands and knees. There could be no answer for Rulad. It was simple as that. The Warlock King would have to kill Rulad. He had a quick thought about whether that would even work. Chops off Rulad's hands, sever his head, and burn his body to ashes. Destroy the monster that was not Rulad. He heard footsteps behind him, and he sat back on his haunches. Hulad stepped into the view. The slave asked Udinaas what he was doing here. Udinaas didn't answer the question, but asked if Featherwitch had cast the tiles. Hulad said that she had tried, but failed. The holds were closed, or rather, Featherwitch was blind to them. She was scared. Udinaas asked what else has happened. Hulad said that he didn't know, and all the Eater were still in the Citadel. Hulad reached down and helped Udinaas up. He suggested that they go to the longhouse where they can get warm and dry. He let Hulad lead him to the Sengar longhouse. Along the way, Udinaas asked if Hulad had seen the ships. Hulad said yes, and that they were lowering boats, but explained that there would be no welcome sent. Udinaas wondered if the delegation would be upset with that. Hulad made no reply. When they entered the longhouse, he helped Udinaas take off his rain-soaked shirt. He gasped and asked where Udinaas had gotten those almost black bruises. Udinaas looked down at the bruises where the talons of the Wyval had been. He replied that he didn't know. Hulad said that they reminded him of the same bruises on Featherwitch after she was attacked from the demon. He asked Udinaas what was happening to him. Udinaas said nothing and that he was going to sleep. Huda said nothing more as he watched Udinaas walk down the length of the main chamber towards his sleeping quarters. So I only had a couple of thoughts here. I know that when I first read this, I was really kind of taken aback. I'm like, who picked him up out of the water, right? Because it just kind of happened so fast. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I almost kind of get the feeling that he maybe be having some suicidal ideation, but I don't think that's the case. I feel like that's kind of what it looks like and what it sounds like, but I just think he's just so exhausted, right? And he's uncertain, he doesn't know, and he's just dangerously close to the water, right? So the Wyval essentially saves him. What? Sorry?
You get tired of being tired.
Right. You know, when you're tired and exhausted, sometimes you get careless, right?
I did not, I think you have a good point, where the Wyval picking him up and keeping him out of the water. I did not, as I was reading that, it probably didn't make a lot of sense to me. I did not see it as like a rescue, but I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a rescue. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll get some slack for it, but I mean, I could see the point where like maybe Udinaas was trying to kill himself, here because all events kind of lead up to that mentality, but I think he's simply just exhausted. He's tired.
Yeah, not thinking right.
Nobody's around. He wakes up and there's nobody here, right? Like everybody's in the Citadel. The slaves have gone wherever they've gone, and well, I'll just take a stroll down to the beach, right?
Right.
Try to understand everything that I witnessed, right? Fair enough. The other thought that I had, again, that brought this up before, Udinaas seems to catch on quick. The thought tells it all. Like, would killing Roulade even work? Chopping off his head, sever his hands, and burn his body to ashes. This thought tells it all, that Udinaas believes that Roulade would simply come back, which I believe is true as well. I don't think that no matter what you do to Roulade, he's going to keep coming back. So I don't think that he is the bringer of Midnight Tides. I think he is Midnight Tides.
We'll see if we get any clarity.
Which is kind of funny because he technically is the bringer of Midnight Tides, as he's the one who held the sword. He brought the sword, but he was the one who delivered that gift.
Maybe not the best gift in the world.
No.
All right. Fighting the outflow of the river, the three boats made their way towards the south shore of the river. Each boat held about a dozen Letheri, most of them bodyguards in their full armor with visors closed on their helm. A few steps back, Baruch watched Saren as she followed the merchant down to the strand. It appeared they would be all of the welcoming committee. Saren asked what he was going to tell them. Baruch looked back and said he was hoping she was going to say something. Saren said she was not sure of the protocol. Nefadas is leading the delegation, but the prince is here also. Who was she to acknowledge first? Baruch said the only one likely to be offended is whoever she bows to second. She said this was assuming she didn't intend a calculated insult. Baruch reminded her she was supposed to be neutral. Saren said she would bow between them. Baruch said they would both think that she had lost her mind. Saren said at least that was even-handed, and Baruch appreciated the humor. They watched the boats approach, and the rain decided to rain harder as the boats nearly disappeared behind a wall of water. They soon landed, and a man approached and introduced himself as Finad Morak Navath of the Prince's Guard. He wanted to know where the Edur were. He seemed to be facing Saren, so she spoke. She said they were in the Citadel and that there had been an event. The Finad asked what in the world that meant, and Saren said it was complicated, but the camp is just over the bridge. They can get there and then get out of the rain. Morak said he wasn't worried about the rain, as he saluted Quillas Diskanar under an umbrella held by two servants. He told the prince that it appeared the Edur had chosen this particular time to be busy. Quillas was irritated and said it was hardly a favorable start, then asked if Hall had done the smart thing and gotten out of town. Saren was surprised by the question. She tried her best to hide it, but told them he was nearby. The prince said he intended to forbid him from showing up. Saren said she thought the Warlock King had invited him. The prince asked if Hall would speak for the Edur now. Baruch jumped in and said that was a question they would like answered. Quillas knew he was a merchant from Trait. Baruch formally introduced himself and nearly fell over from his bow. They said it was great that he was a drunk merchant. Saren said their arrival was sudden and the Edur had been busy for a day and a half and they didn't really have that much to do in the meantime. The first eunuch was a pace back from the others and appeared uninterested in the conversation taking place. And Saren thought there was a different kind of power, and in his silence, the weight was being stolen from Prince Diskanar. Things quickly changed, though, as the prince asked the first eunuch what he thought of the situation. Nefadas, with a blank expression, said they arrived at a moment of crisis, and the Aquator and the merchant seemed to know something about it, so they will need to wait for the explanation. Quillas asked for the details. Saren filled them in on what had happened with Troll and Company, Roulade showing up dead, but now he lives, and the sword. So Quillas asked why they didn't just cut off Roulade's hands. Nefadas patiently explained the ritual with a blooded warrior, and that it was hard to believe the situation had not been resolved yet. Saren said it was now a moot point, as the corpse was now alive again. Quillas asked if this was a sick joke. Baruch said it was no joke, and they had seen him with their own eyes. He is alive. His own scream proved it. He had been dressed. The prince didn't know what he meant by this. The first eunuch's eyes went wide, and he asked how far along. Baruch said the coins and the wax. Nephatis asked if he still would not relinquish the sword. Saren said they didn't know. He then asked for a description of the sword, if they had any idea where it was from, or tell them anything from the style. They said they couldn't tell them much, but the bell hilt bears some resemblance to the technique used by the Mekros. Quillas asked if they meant the traders from the floating cities. Saren said yes. However, the pattern on the hilt had been shaped to resemble links of chain. Baruch said she had a good eye. He only said he saw a sword. Nephatis said it would be a good idea to head to camp. The prince hissed, asking Nephatis if he would swallow this insult. Nephatis said there was no insult and asked Saren to escort them. After a short time, Nephatis asked if Hall was witness to this. Saren did not think so, as he had been gone for a while. Nephatis said he would return, and Saren said yes. Nephatis said he had left most of his guard, including Finad, Garen Eberict, on the ship. Would it be a good idea to call for them? Saren said she wasn't sure. It depended on what he would have them do. Nephatis said a word or two with Hull. She asked if the Finad was a persuasive man, and Nephatis said not by his personality, and this made Saren shiver. He asked if she was chilled. Saren said it was the rain. Nephatis hoped there was a fire being stoked somewhere. Saren said there was an audience with the Warlock King, but as her role dictated, she left before anything important was discussed. And as to what was said, neither Hull nor Baruch had said anything. He was surprised to hear Hull was present for this and said he had a hard time believing she didn't hear anything of substance. Saren hesitated, and he told her to make her choice. She said it wasn't that. It was that she was afraid whichever position the Warlock King had taken, it wouldn't really matter, and she didn't think Rulad would give up the sword. Nephatis asked her to fill him in on Rulad, and Nephatis said he was beginning to understand how complex the situation was. Saren thought to herself she had as well, as if Nephatis had given her any other choice while she walked arm in arm with him. Didn't really have too many thoughts on this. I just had, I guess, just kind of one. This delegation that comes in, they're hearing that Rulad was dead and then came back to life, and they're like, "Are you joking with us?" And Baruch's like, "Nope, we saw this with our own eyes. He's alive. We heard him scream, and we had seen him be dressed for burial." And I just think, like, what a messed up thing to hear that this guy was killed, but now he's back alive again. Like, yeah, that would be a hard thing to like wrap your head around, right? Like no way. Like, you're full of shit. But they ain't. They're telling the truth.
We knew about the delegation. We knew it was on its way, right? And so I think that a lot of this section is just they've arrived and kind of give explanation as to why the Eater aren't there, the welcome party, and they're kind of just catching them up on things we already know. So I think it makes sense, right? I mean, I don't have a whole lot to pull from this. I think that more of the delegation comes later. More thoughts, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, it just kind of feels like one of those transitional sections, I guess, just catching back up.
Yeah. I do think that you're right, though. I know that earlier on in the season, you had suggested that Withel, the guy who made the sword from the prologue, is indeed the sword, because they seem to be resembling a technique used by the Mekros. So I think that you were right, and that Withel did make the sword that Rulad currently holds.
I think so. I mean, it makes sense to me. So I hope I'm right.
But also, it just kind of, like we were told that there was a soul trapped inside. So it also kind of makes me wonder if this is Tiam, the mother of dragons, stuck inside. And that's how it's a gift, is that if you are killed holding the sword, you come back to life.
I would be curious to find out how that soul got in the sword then, how that happened.
That's what I'm going to assume, and I'm going to go with the crippled god probably arranged that.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, well.
Ready to move on here.
Yeah, sweet. Udinaas' eyes opened, they stung. Wither was telling him to wake up. Udinaas said that what he needed was to sleep. Wither told him not to speak so loud, and repeated that he needed to wake up and walk to the citadel. The Teist Eater Emperor has a need for him. Udinaas told Wither to go away. Wither explains that the Wyval and him are in agreement on this, that Udinaas must step to the forefront and become invaluable to Rulad. Wither entices the pot by saying Udinaas could make Featherwitch his own. He asked Wither to explain that more. Wither said that he would not, and told the slave to get along and go serve the Edur Emperor. Udinaas pulled aside his blankets and started to put on his moccasins. He asked the pair of them why couldn't they just leave him alone. Wither said that she had raped Udinaas, took his seed. He asked the slave why she would do that. Udinaas stopped and said her name out loud, Mianandor. Wither explained that she had designs, and no particular love for neither the Edur nor the Andi. He asked what they had anything to do with it, and Wither made no reply to this. He finished putting on his other moccasin and said that he was a slave, and that the only way Featherwitch would be his is if she became his slave. But slaves are not given slaves of their own. The other option would be if Wither invades her mind and twists her will. Wither said that Udinaas was giving him power that he does not possess. Udinaas told Wither to be quiet, as he was leaving now. He passed Hulad, crouched by a fire, as he collected his rain cloak and left through the doors. Outside, the rain was pouring. He put up his hood and made his way to the citadel. He wondered where Rulad would lead his people, now that he was emperor. The shadow wraiths made no attempt to stop him as he opened the doors to the citadel. There were no guards inside, and the curtain beyond was drawn closed. He shook the rain from his cloak and continued forward. He parted the curtain, and inside he saw all the Edur kneeling to the shining form of what was Rulad. Udinaas thought that Rulad was not blind and not crippled, and if that was madness, then poison rode on its current. Udinaas felt Rulad's eyes on him. The emperor told the slave to approach. Heads lifted and turned to watch the slave walk to Rulad. He did not look at anyone but Rulad. When he arrived, the emperor told him to speak. Udinaas explained that the Letheri delegation had arrived. Rulad said that they were bound as master and slave, and asked if Udinaas had heard his summons. Udinaas lied, because it was getting easier to do so, and said yes. Rulad told Udinaas to go get the delegation and bring them here. The slave bowed and turned around to fetch the delegation. He left the citadel and was beneath the rain once more. The silence would invite thought, but he refused. He crossed the bridge. A wood fire was drifting from underneath a canopy. He saw figures standing beneath it. As he approached, Seren Padak turned and was the first to see him. He thought to himself that there is more to her than she realizes. The ghosts like her, hovering like moths around a candle flame. He watched her say something, and the others turned to face him. He stopped just outside the tarp. He told them that the Emperor of the Edur would see them now. Udinaas led them back across the bridge. As they reached the Sengar longhouse, shadow wraiths swirled before the door. Udinaas told the prince that his bodyguards were not welcome. The young prince scowled and told Morak Navath to stay here with his bodyguards. The wraiths edged back, and Udinaas led those attending through the doors of the citadel. The first eunuch frowned as the curtain at the far end. He asked if there were Edur nobles inside. Why couldn't he hear anything? Udinaas replied that it was because they were waiting for the delegation. He begins to warn them of Rulad's appearance when Prince Quillas cut in and said they weren't expecting to talk negotiations right away, as they haven't even been proclaimed guests yet. Udinaas cut in himself and said that he isn't the one to guarantee that. He advises that they be ready for anything. The prince was saying that this was absurd when Nefadas cut him off and said that they should go and get this over with. The prince was not used to so many interruptions, and he was pissed. Seren spoke and asked Udinaas if, by his words, that it meant that Hanan Masag had been usurped. The slave said yes. Seren then asked if Rulad had proclaimed himself Warlock King. Udinaas said no. He's made himself the emperor. There was silence for a moment, and the prince spoke in disbelief. He wondered how 6 Edur tribes of seal hunters could form an empire. He called Rulad a fool. The first eunuch added that it was one thing to proclaim an empire and asked Udinaas if the nobility had bent the knee. The slave explained that the nobility had already bent their knee to Rulad. Seren asked about Hanan Masag and if he had done so as well. The slave said that he had as well. Once again, there was silence, until Nephatus nodded his head to Udinaas and thanked him and said that they were ready. Udinaas nodded and pulled the curtain aside and stepped into the chamber beyond. He escorted them through a crowd of nobles, up the dais in the center. He observed Rulad in his authoritarian pose, and the people around. He thought to himself that the Edur were a fallen people, who would rise anew. The first eunuch addressed the emperor and introduced himself and Prince Quillas. Rulad introduced himself and proclaimed them as guests. The emperor announces that the king wishes to establish a formal treaty. Rulad shrugged and said that there was already a treaty, one that they honor, but the Letheri haven't, so what's the point in a new agreement? As the first eunuch was about to speak, Quillas got there first and accused the Edur of stealing a harvest of tusked seals, and being that things cannot be reversed, there is a manner of debt/payment. Udinaas smiled. He didn't need to look up to see the shocked expression of the Edur nobility. After a moment, Rulad announced that Hanan Masag would speak to this. The former warlock king made his way to the center dais and asked the prince how the Letheri arrived at this notion of debt. The harvest was illegal, per the treaty. Do the Letheri deny it? Nephatus started to say no, they do not, and he's again interrupted by the prince. Quillas tells Nephatus to shove it, and begins to say they do not dispute illegality of the harvest, but that illegality doesn't refute what took place, and that harvests at the hands of the Letheri are now in Edur hands. He explains that the current treaty has an agreed-upon value for tusked seals, and it is the price they expect to be honored. Hanan said that the prince's logic was extraordinary. Quillas said in return that they had been prepared to compromise. Udinaas was curious as to why Nephatus stayed quiet. His silence could only be assumed as allegiance to the prince's logic. Quillas continued saying that the debt would be forgiven in exchange for land, specifically for Trait Reach, which is known only to serve seasonal visits for fishing from the Edur. They can remain available to the Edur for a small percentage of each catch. Hanan Masag said then that they began this treaty in debt with the Letheri. The prince said yes. The former warlock king then added to his statement that this would be the case if they were in fact, possession of those stolen tusk seals. The prince began to say, of course, before Masag interrupted to say that they don't have the tusk seals that were stolen. Quillas was furious at this and exclaimed his disbelief. Hanan said that Quillas was welcome to check their property and their storehouses if he didn't believe them. They had punished the harvesters, as was their right, but they did not take the harvest. The prince said that the harvest ships arrived with their holds emptied. Hanan Masag suggested that maybe they dumped their harvest to quicken their pace, fleeing from us Edur, freeing from our Edur wrath. Quillas stared in disbelief, and Hanan took the opportunity to continue on. He stated that therefore, since they do not have the harvest, they cannot be in debt to the Letheri, but rather the Letheri are in debt to the Edur to the market value of the harvested tusked seals. He said that they are undecided of the recompense the Letheri shall provide. Quillas, out of desperation, said that they had brought gifts. Masag smartly said to which they will charge interest for. He said to the prince that they are familiar with the pattern of conquest of the neighboring tribes. Nephatus finally spoke and said that they have much to discuss, but their journey has been long, and maybe it would be good to retire for the night, and they shall reconvene tomorrow. Rulad said that this was an excellent idea. He tells Udinaas to escort the delegation to their sleeping arrangements and then to return here, as there's a long night ahead of him. The prince stood like a puppet with his strings cut. The faces of Seren and Nephadus were composed. Udinaas thought that they were all puppets here.
That was a pretty long section there.
It was pretty long. That's okay. I can't be the only one who gets, or you can't be the only one who gets them.
I think it evens out in the long run.
Yeah. This part with Wither, this is, again, one of the other things that I'm confused by. Because I think that we had suspected, and this confirms it, that Udinaas has a deceased Andi named Wither and a Wyval inside of him. And they say that we are in agreement on this, that Udinaas must become invaluable to R'hllad. And aren't both of them enemies of the Edur? So why would they beg Udinaas to do this? Is this like a to keep my enemies closer type of thing? So that they can both spy or something? It just
I would
seems
think so. Or, yeah, they could maybe use him to strike at him somehow at some point, cause some sort of damage.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just really it's strange to me. I don't know what to make of it, but it just doesn't seem like they would go along. Or maybe they will. I mean, maybe there's a connection there.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Like an opportunity to reconnect or apologize, or I don't know what that word is. This next thought, and this kind of goes back to my Baruch talking about the sword reminding him of the fickle sister, Sakul Ankadu. They're talking about Wither is like, hey, you were raped, Udinaas. She took your seed. Why would she do that? And then he says her name out loud, Mianandor. And Wither explained that she had no design, or she had designs and no particular love for the Edur or the Andi. But Mianandor is half Eliant and half Leosian, because Osric is her father.
I wouldn't have remembered that.
And so is Sakul Ankadu, the dappled sister. She is also Osric's offspring. Who her mother is, that part I'm not sure of.
Maybe it'll be revealed eventually.
Maybe it's one of those things where the Leosians are working with the crippled god too. And they're like, hey, here's this gift. Or, have somebody make you a sword and put our mother's soul in it, right? Like they don't have any particular love for their mom.
I don't really have anything to add for you there, man. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's like, yeah, it sounds pretty crazy, but it also makes sense. Just from that section where Osric is confronting his daughters about what they're doing to their cousin. Next thought. Udinaas lied because it was getting easier to do so and just said yes. But this is in response to R'hllad asking if Udinaas had heard his summons. My question is if Udinaas is lying here, but Wither woke him up, do you think that Wither heard the summons? Is that a connection, or is it just because he's a wraith?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't expect if Wither's in his head that he would. Yeah, I don't know.
To me, it sounds like Wither heard the summons, or the Wyval, one of those two, and then woke him up.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man. Good question.
And then, of course, you heard the ghosts like her hovering like moths around a candle flame. So I was confused, but I just wrote my comment about it. Was like, I don't remember this the first time I read it, but it's ominous. And does this mean she plays a role in something that is to come, either in this book or further out? But I almost kind of like your thought that maybe she takes a bullet, as we talked about. I mean, if the ghosts like her, maybe there's some they know when they're gonna die. Yeah.
Yeah, ready to welcome her home, so to speak. I don't know.
Right. So I guess we'll just have to read on and find out about that one. And then as we move on here, Seren spoke and asked Udinaas if his words meant that Hanan Basag had been usurped. And Udinaas is like, yep. And then she asks if he had proclaimed himself Warlock King. And Udinaas is like, nope. He made himself the emperor. And I just felt like this small exchange just made Rulad's proclamation as emperor so much more emphasized. It was really cool and really well timed, in my opinion. It's like we're not even in the scene with Rulad yet. And just it emphasizes everything that we've read so far.
Was he even there at the time when it happened? I don't remember.
Ooh,
Udinaas, was he there when Rulad proclaimed himself emperor? Was he in the room?
no.
So he's just, word spreads fast.
Yeah. I would imagine based on the fact that, he pretty much walked into the Citadel and all of the nobility is kneeling. Like, he can only assume that he's the emperor.
Right.
Well, and I think Wither tells him to go serve his emperor.
Oh, yeah.
And again, further on, Udinaas thinks he thought to himself that the Edur were a fallen people who would rise anew. This part gives me chills, and because I don't think we've seen everything, but from some of the experiences we've had so far, makes me think we're just getting started. And kind of like I was saying earlier, which is so funny that the 5th book in the series is essentially the start of things we've read and the things we haven't.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's kind of a cool focal point. I don't know, it just gets me excited in a good way. Like tits on a railing.
I can't even respond to that.
Man. So here's the one time I will agree with you with Rulad. They're arguing about the semantics of what took place at the beginning of the book, right? Quillas got there first and accused the Edur of stealing a harvest of tusked seals. And being that things cannot be given back or reversed, there's a manner of debt and payment. I really liked the response that Rulad gave here, which was
He's going to
what was
let
I talking? But maybe I highlighted the wrong thing.
he's going to let Masag talk about it.
No, this part where he's just like, after they introduce himself, I just highlighted the wrong sentence. Rulad shrugs and said that, hey, there was already a treaty, one that we honor, but y'all don't. So what's the point in a new agreement? That part to me was pretty badass from Rulad, but that's all I'm giving you. That's all I'm giving you.
I'll take it.
And I think it's interesting that everything that led up to the meeting with Rulad, Prince Quillas was interrupted by either Seren or Nefadas or Udinaas, and now it's his turn to interrupt. However, the stakes are a little bit higher now, and all I can think is just, Quillas, you're just such a fucking dumbass. But, I mean, that was designed, right? Like, they wanted him essentially there to fuck things up.
It seems like it's going that way.
I get that it's a design, but he still pisses me off. And then, I guess, kind of rounding it out here, it's just really funny how his own words are used against him, because the Eater are like, hey, we don't have your harvest. You can check our property. We don't have it. Where it went, we don't know, but we don't have it. So by your logic, you owe us for the harvest because you harvested the seals. I fucking love that. Where like he's just so defied by his own logic that he can't talk himself out of it. And so now the Letheri owe the Edur, which is kind of cool. And also, I'm gonna go with, maybe you caught this, maybe you didn't. I'm gonna go with you maybe didn't. But Masag says that they are familiar with their pattern of conquest of the neighboring tribes because of their out of desperation, like, we've got gifts, and Masag is like, yeah, but we know that those gifts come with hooks or interest payments because we are familiar with the pattern of conquest that you've done with the neighboring tribes. And I wonder if this is what Hall told Hanan Mosag when he and Baruch stayed after Seren left that meeting. Remember how she left and then those two stayed, but then we didn't hear anything about what was talked about. So I wonder if Hall told Hanan Mosag about his experiences with the Letheri and how they used him to go out and collect information.
Oh, that's a good Good catch.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah. Nice.
that was all I had.
The only other thing I think I would add, and I don't think you summarized it, because Roulade shows up in here, right? And then, or I'm sorry, Udina shows up and Roulade dismisses him, right?
Yep.
And he's slowly backing away, and Roulade
Yep.
is like, "You can just turn around. I have no problem with the man's back."
Yep.
I liked that because it's, to me, it was just like, you're going to be the emperor, but you can still be like
Decent.
in touch with decent. Yes, thank you. Semi, I don't know what's coming later, but he's treating a slave with some basic dignity or respect. He's not going to make it a pain in the ass for him to leave a room.
I'll give you that. Okay, that's number 2 I'll give you. But I wonder if this will extend to others.
It may
Or
not.
if it's just Udinaas because there's a weird connection there.
Yeah, yet to be seen. My last section here. Another good one. Trull watched as the slave led the Aquitor and the delegation out from the chamber. The world had not crumbled, but shattered. It was like a puzzle being put together by a crazy person, and he didn't know where he fit. He thought to himself, he is the brother to the Emperor. It is Roulade, but also not. He did not know him, but at the same time he knew him too well, and that scared him the most. Masag had been quietly speaking with Roulade, appearing calm in his new role, but Trull knew this was to keep the crowd calm. Trull wondered how the Warlock King was really dealing with this. Roulade nodded and waved a hand, dismissing Mosag back to his Krishnan, and at Roulade's instruction, a large chair was brought to the dais where he sat, where Trull could see his exhaustion. He knew it would take some time to acquire his strength to carry the weight for any sustained amount of time. Roulade laid his head back and looked out on the nobles, and his attention quickly silenced them. Roulade said he had known death, and he had returned. He was not the same, not the unblooded warrior they saw before the journey began. He had returned to bring them to the memory of their destiny, to lead them. He called for his brother Fear to step forward. Fear did as he was bid. Roulade said he was second only to Hanan Masag, and that his loyalty was his greatest need. The slave Udinaas had returned. Fear asked the emperor, not his brother, what was required. Roulade said he required a gift. Fear said all he had was his. Roulade asked if he was true to his word on this. Fear said he would not make this claim otherwise. Trull had a bad feeling about this. Roulade said the emperor requires an empress. Fear suddenly realized where this was going. Roulade asked Fear for his wife. Trull thought Roulade was a sick bastard and stepped forward. Roulade's hand snapped out and told him to be careful. This wasn't his concern. It never was. Trull asked if he must break all those who follow him. Roulade screamed, "Another word! One more and I will have you flayed alive!" Trull recoiled into silence. Roulade said, "Kill me. That is all you need to do for your proof. Yes, kill me. Again. You knew I was alone guarding the rear slope. You knew it, Trull, and you left me to my fate." Trull said he had no idea. Roulade said he was tired of the lies. Returning his attention to Fear, he asked for his betrothed. Would he stand between her and the title of Empress? Would he be that selfish? Fear said she was his. Fear's words empty of all life, words that themselves were a gift to the Emperor. Roulade twisted a nasty smile. He called to Man, saying it was done and for her to join her Emperor. She moved as if this moment had been practiced over and over again. Trull did not think it possible. She moved past Fear without a look. Looking out at the rest of the nobles, Roulade took her hand. This Fear took as a physical attack as he took a step back. Roulade thanked Fear for his gift and said he was assured of his loyalty and that he was proud to call him brother. He called to the others, Benatus, Midik, and Theratus, Hanan Masag, and of course Trull. They were bound by the blood of their ancestors. He kept talking, but Trull quit listening as he was focused on Man, the horror she couldn't hide written across her face. In his head, he called out to Fear to let him know she didn't seek this betrayal. He was able to pull his gaze away and see that Fear and everyone else, except Rulad, could see this. She showed them that some truths could not be broken, and her face was another promise. She would withstand his crimes because there was no other choice. A promise that was also a lesson to everyone present. Withstand, suffer, live as you must live now. There will one day be an answer to this. Schroll wondered who would give that answer and how long they would have to wait. He thought that they are fallen, but the Emperor claims they will rise again. But he is insane, for they are not rising, but falling, and he fears there will be no end to their descent until someone gave an answer. Rulad quit speaking, as if he was aware that something was happening among his new followers, something that didn't involve him and his new power. He rose from the chair and said the gathering was done, but Mosag and his Krishnan would remain there with him and the Empress. He called for Udinaas to bring her slaves so they could attend her needs. Everyone else out and to spread the word of the new Edur Emperor and to get their weapons. Troll only prayed for someone to answer this. I like this section too, not as much as, what was it, my second section, but
where he proclaims himself emperor.
Yeah. Rulad, he's in the process of asking his brother for his betrothed, and Rulad asks, he says he requires an empress, and then Fear, he's got this realization where the conversation's going, and I'll admit, it's a dick part on Rulad, but it's far from like the worst thing I think that we've seen in this series. So yeah, again, I recognize it's a dick move, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's that shitty compared to what we've seen. But this could all just be the start of things, going downhill fast. But hey, man,
yeah, fast is a good way to put it.
I'm here for the ride. I'm on the roller coaster. I am not strapped in, and we're heading for the end of the line.
Yep.
Yes, I admit Rulad dick move here. For now, I can live with it.
No, I'm good. Dick move indeed.
Rulad, he screams at Schroll, saying he's going to flay him alive. And then he just throws Schroll under the bus here. He says, I was alone guarding the rear slope. You knew it, and you left me to die. And Schroll says he has no idea. And this, I think, is maybe the worst move because there's no way Troll can defend it here. It's a he said situation. And I think Rulad's got the upper hand. He's like, well, I'm the one that fucking died. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. But this is, I think, why I don't like Rulad, is that there's so many consequences to what he's doing right now that he just doesn't give a shit about. And I believe that it will ultimately cause his demise.
I guess we'll see.
I think he's going to fuck some shit up in the meantime, but he asked his brother for his wife. Do you really think that Fear's got his back?
What choice does he have? He just heard him say he's going to flay his brother alive. If he says another word, what's he going to do to him?
I mean, right, but that's Fear. That's not leadership. I'm going to be looking for every opportunity under his nose. Fuck him over.
I don't know if this was a quote from Gladiator or something else, but I thought there was a quote somewhere I thought it was an emperor saying sometimes it's better to be feared than loved.
Yep, I think that is Gladiator. You're probably right. I don't know. It gives me an uneasy feeling.
I don't think that's any way to rule for any sustained amount of time. I mean, I think it can work in the short term, but yeah, you're probably going to end up with a knife in your back at some point, right?
Yeah.
People are going to get tired of it, but these two instances and then this third one here where Rulad is like, would you be the reason you don't let your wife become the empress? Asks Fear if he would be that selfish, and he's just, he's being very manipulative right now to get what he wants.
Yep. Yes, he is. And I don't know. I don't like manipulative people. So maybe this is just a personal thing for me, and maybe I'm not able to enjoy Rulad for what he is. I mean, this whole book I've just had an eerie feeling about him. So
said I'm just kind of here for the ride.
That's fair. It's fair. I'm getting off this roller coaster.
Going to the power tower?
Yeah.
And then Troll, he's looking at Mayan and he's looking at Fear and he's trying to get his attention away, to make eye contact with Fear to like let him know that, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't have any choice here. Everybody can see that except Rulad. And I think that might be like the scariest part about it is, Rulad isn't seeing it, but of course he's not going to, so.
What does this do for Troll's doubts, though? I mean, up until this point, he's suspected that Rulad and Mayan were secretly meeting, right?
I don't know that it confirms it, but
I think it does the opposite.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it have been just better for Troll to not voice his doubts?
I don't think that's within his character, though.
No, absolutely not. But I think that this might be a lesson for him, too.
Yeah, it could be.
Because it's clear to me that Mayan doesn't want this at all, based on the way her face looks, right?
Yeah, well, I'm sure she's in shock. Like, how could she not be? She's being forced into this thing that she doesn't want. And I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I have no idea what to expect with it going forward.
That's true.
My last thought here, Rulad, he's telling everybody, spread the word about the new emperor and to get your weapons ready. And Troll's just praying for someone to answer this, to do something about it. And given the ending, or I guess just the prologue in House of Chains, I think it's going to have to be Troll who answers this call. He's going to answer his own call here, I think.
I would agree. However, again, I think about everything that we've read so far. Do you think that the fashioning of Silver Fox in Gardens of the Moon is a response to this?
I don't know. Could be.
Or like Karz's journey? Like, I just wonder about how many things that like we've read have been set in motion that we don't have any answers to, and how they're related to this. How they are related to the rise of the Empire, right? I mean, it's funny to me that the Taistidur, who are a fragmented people, right? I didn't mention this earlier. Featherwitch, when Udinaas is asking Ulad about her casting the tiles, and he says that she's blind to it or that the holds are closed. So I wonder if that means that the empty throne is now occupied.
It's an interesting thought.
By the crippled god. I somehow wonder if the empty throne was maybe a larger fragment of Emerlon in some way, shape, or form.
I do not know.
All right, then.
That was all I had for that section.
All right, well, I guess we'll bring her on home with this little shorty.
Yeah.
All right. A dozen paces from the citadel, a figure emerged from the rain to stand in front of Udinaas. The Aquator Seren asked what Rulad had done. He studied her a moment and then shrugged. He said that Rulad had stole his brother's betrothed. They have an empress, and she does poorly at a brave face. Seren Padak said that the Edur had been usurped, and a tyrant now sits on the throne. Udinaas hesitated and then told Seren to tell the first eunuch to prepare for war. She revealed no surprise at this and then turned away, walked into the rain, and was gone. He thought to himself that he is the bringer of good tidings, and now it was Featherwitch's turn. Rain rushed down from the sky, blinding the blind, indifferent and mindless. It held no meaning. How could it? It was just rain, descending from grieving clouds. The wind was the breath of natural laws, born high in the mountains and out to sea. Its voice promised nothing. There was no meaning to be found in the lifeless weather, no meaning to the living or dying. The tyrant was clothed in gold, and a future soaked in blood. It meant nothing. Whoa, that hits hard. I don't really know what to make of it. It hits hard. Couple things that I had is that when the Aquator said that the Edur had been usurped and a tyrant now sits on the throne, I almost kind of feel bad for Hanan Mosag, because I get the feeling that the crippled god got what he wanted, but with just a different Edur in charge now. But I think this is the plan all along. but it originally included Hanan. So this leaves me with a question. Did Masag do it to save the Edur and their traditions, or did he do it for selfish reasons? I think the former. I think that he recognized what the crippled god was going to do and was like, "Yeah, I'll be your guy. I'll take this gift," so that he could defy the crippled god and not do what he wanted.
I don't know that I have a real good feel for him one way or the other, which it would be. I guess I could kind of see it going either way. I
Yeah.
don't know which way I would lean.
I mean, I just base it on everything that he kind of debated and argued with the Letheri about the whole Tusk Seals thing, right? Like, he seemed extremely logical, able to use the own treaty against the Letheri delegation. So I think that, like, his heart was purely for the Edur, and I think that he recognized that what the crippled god wanted was not how he viewed the Edur as a people. Also, it kind of explains why he was so desperate for the sword.
Yeah, that's true. He did want it
So
pretty
I
bad.
think that I'm under the belief that it was because he was trying to save the Edur, not to do what he wanted with this gift. I don't think he was going to use the power for bad.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah,
But I guess we could ask Steve.
yeah, might be a good question for him. I'll put a little star in. And then lastly, Udinaas says to the Akotur to tell Nifados to prepare for war. And Hull got what he wanted. He wanted the Edur to start war, or the Letheri and the Edur to war with each other.
We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I don't have a lot of strong feelings yet as to how things are going to go, but super curious.
I don't think that we're going to see really any battles. I mean, maybe we will, but I would imagine that where this is going to go is Roulade is eventually going to start some shit. He's going to start putting the crippled god's plans into motion. What that entails, I'm not sure.
We will get to find out. I like this next sub book is called All That Remains Unseen.
All that lies hidden. All that lies unseen. Okay.
Oh, close.
We were both close, yeah.
I just looked at it and I'd forgotten already, so.
Oh, it's all good. I would imagine that some things are going to be uncovered for sure. The last book is the title of the book, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure we got 8 chapters to get through for this sub book, so we shall see what we get.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a ball. But yeah, I will probably take this opportunity for the first half hour or so to give it a little read.
Nice.
Dive in, enjoy this gloomy Sunday.
Yeah, a little sun down here, so.
Fair enough.
All right, anything else we want to say about this chapter?
Not at all. It was a good one.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm excited to dig into this next sub book and see where things go and just keep knocking chapter off after chapter here.
Exactly. Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. I would imagine by what? Middle of July we should be done if we keep with our 2-week pace.
We'll see.
Yeah. I think that I'm busy enough where 2 weeks feels just about right, but at the same time it's like, man, one chapter every 2 weeks. That's no good.
Yeah, things have, since we've started, I think we've probably gotten better at picking things out. I mean, these chapters, I think, probably have just gotten bigger and denser, and there's more meat to them.
Right. We'll see. Maybe I can start getting the ball rolling on summaries a little bit quicker.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't remember what all I've got going on this week, but we've still been working on the basement, so we're trying to get that back together and just ready for that stupid project to be done. I'm glad we did it, but man, it's a pain in the ass.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So.
But hey, the completion is in sight, right?
Yeah, it's getting there. A little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time. All right. Well, I got nothing else.
Me neither, man. I'll probably try to start reading here too, and we'll see. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get through it or not, or if I will get a chance to read, but I'm going to give it a shot. So otherwise, hope you have a good rest of your Sunday, and it was good talking to you, man.
was good talking to you too, buddy.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest.